What's up, guys? We're back for another week of fights, this time in London, going across the pond, making the return to the UK after a long time, since pre-COVID era. So some fighters are actually making the return for a long hiatus, maybe like a year, 2 years plus in some cases on this card, but nonetheless, a lot of exciting names. But because of some of the long breaks from some of these fighters, it makes for a very challenging card. We got to make some assumptions as to what some of these guys are going to look like coming back. So without further ado, let's get into the fights. Okay, we're kicking off this card with a banger of a fight because it's the debut of the much-hyped Muhammad Mokaev, youngest fighter on the roster officially, I believe, now taking on Cody Durden. So this young guy, Muhammad Mokaev, born in Dagestan, fighting out of the UK, I believe, and he's 21 years old, and he's been fighting since, I think, 15 years old as an amateur. He's known for having this stellar record. He's on a huge win streak right now. 22 amateur fights, 22-0. 5-0 as a professional with one exhibition bout in there. And if you're wondering how he got so many amateur fights under his belt so quickly, it's because he was fighting in this international MMA federation where they do, so it's an overseas fight league. They have amateur fights and it's like tournament style. So it's kind of like wrestling tournaments or, any other sort of martial arts tournament where you're facing, opponent upon opponent upon opponent over, a 4-day span, a 3-day span. So he's able to go 3-0, 4-0 over a long weekend, basically, in a couple of these clusters here. And that's kind of what started his huge streak of an amateur career. He also started around like 15, 16 years old, too. So he's been very, very active, and he looks to have the goods. I mean, you have to watch some of this tape on him against guys that are mostly his own age. Younger guys, inexperienced guys, but, it's amateur MMA, and it's all molding this young Dagestani to come into a spot like this against the toughest test of his career, which is Cody Durden. 30-year-old Cody Durden, only been in the UFC a few times now. I believe he came in the middle of 2020, and, he fought to a draw against Chris Gutierrez, and if it wasn't for that control time that Cody Durden had, he would have definitely lost that fight. Ended up being a draw. Then dropping that quick fight against Jimmy Flick where he got submitted, so not a whole lot to see from him early in that fight either. And then he fought the Chinese prospect Richie Lang, and once again using the control time to his benefit to win a decision. A very, very close fight. So a generalist, but he does have like a high school wrestling background, does Cody Durden, 12-3 record. But you can see definitely the jump up in competition when he leaves the regional scene and comes into the UFC, not having too much success so far. And a tough couple of gritty veterans. Jimmy Flick, definitely, a crafty submission fighter, got him out of there pretty early. Richie Lang, the issue is that Cody Durden tends to slow down. He'll start off with a certain amount of significant strikes in round one, a certain amount of takedown attempts, look very active, and then by the time it's round three, he's, the numbers are very, very depleted. He's got not putting a lot of effort into those takedowns, just kind of shooting with a wish and a prayer, hoping to make them and get control time, which he doesn't do much with, which is why these fights have been very close. Now, that's going to be quite the contrary to his opponent, Muhammad Mokaev, who you watch, he can easily go 3 rounds, a ton of decisions, some finishes on his record, but mostly just that grinding Dagestani-style control time, grinding his opponents against the fence, relentless pressure in the grappling world, and then being very active on top as well. Once he gets there, his top pressure is very good. Good hips, he's able to balance on top of his opponent, and, always maintain a dominant position, get those strikes off, and win decisions. And this will still be his biggest test to date, but I think it's an opponent that the UFC and Mokaev's camp probably thinks that is winnable. Again, I think it's that weaponized cardio, using that cardio as a huge component of winning a fight. Against Cody Durden, it's going to be pretty useful, I think. Once Cody Durden slows down, maybe Mokaev will be, a little bit more competitive early with him, but then by the time it's round 3, I see Mokaev taking over and winning a clear-cut decision. I think this fight does go over. I think you can play the overs in this fight. Might be a little bit safer than playing the money line. Who knows what Mokaev will look like in his debut. It's kind of a big spot for him, but I think since he's got so much competitive experience, it should be no issue. Give me Mokaev to win a clear-cut unanimous decision here. Even though I'm pretty confident on Muhammad Mokaev to get this done by decision here, he's a -350 favorite over Cody Durden at the +270 underdog. It's a juicy underdog number, and it's a guy who's, kind of more hardened at 30 years old, has been in the UFC, has some things going for him that way. It's hard to trust anybody making their debut at minus 350, but I think he's kind of handpicked here to beat Cody Durden. It's a good matchup for him. But what I like, instead of the minus 350, I do like the overs as well. Like I said, over 1.5, minus 175, over 2.5 is but even money, and fight goes to decision plus money. So plus 110, fight goes to decision. Probably not a bad look in this fight. Women's strawweight bout up next between Elise Reed, coming back for her second bout in the UFC, taking on Corey McKenna. This will be a tough test for Elise Reed. She jumped in, had the opportunity to fill in short notice against Sijara Eubanks. Elise Reed, former atomweight, strawweight, and then jumping all the way up to a higher weight class, taking on Sarge Eubanks. We kind of knew how that fight was going to play out, and it didn't end well for Elise Reed. She is now a plus 205 underdog as a result. Corey McKenna minus 255. Corey McKenna getting nothing but love, especially on this UFC London card. She is from the UK, even though she's now made her home in Sacramento, California at Team Alpha Male, which is great. That's a great place to be, surrounded by, a lot of well-respected veterans of the game. But in the female realm, you see her on Instagram with Macy Barber, Sarah McMahon, Yan Xiaonan. You see her on Instagram, hitting some. They're well known for having a pretty good strength and conditioning program over there at Team Alpha Male. They partner with another gym and do a lot of, strength training work, heavy conditioning, weight training, things that I love to watch. It's fun to watch some of these fighters, go up against some weights for once. You see them sparring, you see how they look in the cage, but to see them actually battle just some hard, deadlifts. She's doing like hex bar deadlifts, things like that. So it's fun to see. And she's physically strong to begin with, even before she went over to Sacramento with those guys there. She was physically strong in Cage Warriors. You see her picking up her opponents, slamming them, and pretty good on the feet too. I think the biggest path to victory for Elise Reed is using her slight reach advantage in this fight, and she seems to have pretty clean striking. But a lot of the opponents that I watched her fight over in CFFC, they kind of gave her room to use that reach. They gave her, she was able to pressure forward and get them on the end of her punches and look pretty good. I don't know if she's going to look that good against Corey McKenna in the striking realm. I don't think there's a big disparity in the striking as people are making it out to be. Personally, I think Corey McKenna actually has pretty good strikes. Good 1-1-2s, closes the distance well, kind of walks through some Superman punches here and there. And then you'll see her instantly go from getting a good strike off on the break and then going right back to the level change, getting the takedown, grabbing her opponent's hips, dragging them to the mat. And I see that happening here. I don't see Elise Reed being successful in avoiding the takedown for 3 rounds, much less even 1 round. I think this fight will end up on the mat in round 1. I think Corey McKenna has a decent chance at finishing the fight, as it wears on. Maybe Elise Reed starts to kind of give up position, accept position, and, Elise Reed may find herself, getting choked out in this fight. Corey McKenna has some nasty submissions as well. That part's an unknown. We just didn't have a chance to see Elise Reed against somebody her own size as far as, her submission defense, her tendencies as of late to get out of those grappling positions. So I'm not sure if Corey McKenna gets this done into the distance, but I think she at least does enough to win the fight. Hopefully, like I said in the last fight, hopefully the, being in front of her home crowd, her countrymen here, hopefully they don't get to her head and she kind of goes, sometimes she can go crazy with striking on top and lose position. I've seen that happen in some of her fights. But I trust the team that she's with. I trust her to come out the victor in this fight. I just don't know if it's inside the distance or not. But give me Corey McKenna to win by decision here. Okay, up next is a bantamweight fight that I'm looking very much forward to because it is Timur Valiev against Jack Shore, the undefeated Jack Shore, 15-0 as a professional. Timur Valiev, 18-2. He should be 18-3 because you got to give my boy Trevin 5-Star Jones a little bit of credit for, puffing some of that marijuana and knocking out Timur Valiev in a big upset. So there had to be no contested for that positive drug test. But Timur Valiev, nonetheless, should be 18-3. He is now a minus 125 favorite. He was not but just a couple days ago, like a minus 180, minus 175 favorite over Jack Shore, who is now a plus 105 underdog. So the line on the betting market has tightened up quite a bit. I think sometimes they get confused because the the bookies will see, they'll see high-level competition from Timur Valiev. They'll see a Russian guy and want to make him, the favorite. But then they see the 15-0 undefeated record of Jack Shore. So they really just don't know what to do, I think, with the odds. And I think that's why it's changed. Do you go with the Russian tax or do you go with the guy who was, undefeated here by the numbers? So the line's tightened up a bit. I think it's for the better because I am leaning towards Timur Valiev in this fight. This is a very close fight, and that's part of why it's exciting to me as a fan to watch this. And I'm glad that we're getting a good number on both guys, no matter what side of this fight you are on. I like the speed of Timur Valiev. I think his physique is going to help him out in this fight too. 5'6", 67-inch reach. A nice low center of gravity for, defending against some of those takedowns from the bigger man, 5'9". Like I said, the Cage Warriors champion over there at 135 in that promotion, a former 145 competitor, and a very capable 27-year-old BJJ black belt is Jack Shore. I like Jack Shore. I mean, we had high hopes for him coming into the UFC, undefeated prospect in, the most competitive division in the sport currently. But he's made a lot of these fights very, very close. He comes in, shows off his black belt against a couple low-level guys, rear naked chokes, his signature move. Then he makes the Hunter Azure fight very close. I think a lot of people are kind of let down by just his performance. They wanted him to be kind of destroying guys. He's had kind of a nice gifted path with some low-level guys, kind of an ease into the division here since it is a stacked division. And he's not really, proven to be the monster that we thought he would be. Timur Valiev, on the other hand, is, faced nothing but good competition throughout his entire career. I mean, in the World Series of Fighting, in the PFL, and now coming in and, taking out guys like Raoni Barcelos. Just very, very elusive striker, very creative striker. I've never seen somebody constantly throw so many fakes and feints, so many different looks. I mean, he'll like triple jab people up, jab to the body, twos to the body. He'll fake with a jab, throw a right leg kick. I mean, and then shoot for takedowns. I mean, the guy's just a crazy, elusive, creative striker. That's part of what makes him so much fun to watch. And I think his speed might be too much for Jack Shore in this spot. It's going to be one of those spots where Timur Valiev will probably find himself on the mat, probably find himself on his back or on his butt at some point in this fight. I trust in his athleticism and his ability to get back up to his feet. He seems to have pretty good cardio, and I think he's going to be able to put forth enough numbers in the striking to negate any of the control time that is put against him by Jack Shore. I think Jack Shore will taste defeat for the first time here. I think this will be a decision fight. I would like the overs in this fight. Neither guy really showing too big of durability issues. I know Timur Valiev, kind of gassed himself out in round one, thinking that he had Trevin Jones out of there, which he almost did. Gets finished in the second. I know he got dropped by Raoni Barcelos. You can kind of forgive that as well. I don't know if Jack Shore is going to be the one to take out Timur Valiev inside the distance. Unless Timur Valiev, has one of those Trevin Jones spots where he almost has Jack Shore out of there, and then Jack Shore gets a gassed Timur Valiev in round two, grounds him, chokes him out that way, maybe. But I just think that the striking disparity is too much of a difference. I think the speed is going to be on the side of Timur Valiev as well. And I think Timur Valiev wins a pretty like a closely contested fight, but a clear decision. So give me Timur Valiev to win. Interesting light heavyweight bout up next between Nikita Krylov taking on Paul Craig. Paul Craig has been on one hell of a 3-fight win streak here. Actually, like a 5-fight unbeaten streak if you count that split draw against Shogun Rua. And how is he doing it? He's basically like the puncher's chance of a submission artist. I mean, he could be losing a fight, being very inactive in the fight, somehow end up on his back, throwing up a submission, getting the W that way. Magomed Ankalaev, that's as Hail Mary submission as it gets. He got him at the very last second of the fight, round 3, 4:59. And he does this time and time again. I mean, third round submission over Kennedy and Zetriku. Then he takes out he's taking out like the busted Shogun Rua. First it was a draw, then he's able to, Shogun's just so busted, he's able to TKO him in round 2. Antigulov, we all know the story of Antigulov, not the best run in the UFC you could possibly have. And then the biggest one was his most recent one, which was last year against Jamal Hill, breaking his arm in round 1. And Jamal Hill still didn't quit. That guy's so tough. He wanted to keep on fighting, but technical submission, TKO to, elbows from the bottom. So he's always getting these wins off of his back in some cases here. So if Nikita Krylov, whose game plan does include takedowns, Nikita Krylov can just not do that. Just please, for the love of God, do not follow Paul Craig to the ground here. And Krylov has been pretty good. I mean, he grappled. He's a smart fighter. I mean, like a guy like Johnny Walker, instead of standing with him, he negated Johnny Walker's best weapon, took him to the ground, showed pretty good grappling there. He even went to a split decision against Glover Teixeira. Very, very impressive in hindsight right now. So there's a lot to like with Nikita Krylov, and lately he's been a decision guy, but usually he's a pretty potent finisher. Same with Paul Craig. Either Paul Craig is kill or be killed, either getting that Hail Mary submission or he's getting finished himself. So, in this fight, minus 195 for Krylov on the money line, plus 165, the underdog on Paul Craig currently. I think that's pretty fair. I honestly think that's a good price for Krylov, who I favor in this fight to win. I think Krylov can finish Paul Craig inside the distance, and if not, he plays a safe fight, and Paul Craig somehow survives this one. I think Krylov wins the decision here. I mean, Krylov is a very active striker. I mean, pretty just consistent. Usually between 40 and 50 significant strikes landed over 15 minutes in most cases. The only time that Paul Craig has ever gotten that high of a number, like 40 plus significant strikes, was against Shogun Rua. Again, way past his prime. That's the only time that Paul Craig has even landed that many significant strikes. I mean, a lot of times not even breaking, 20. So over 15 minutes, not very impressive there. So you got to imagine on the feet, this is going to be Krylov all day. Activity-wise, the minute winner, it's going to be Krylov all day. That's why I pick him to win this fight. Can Paul Craig make us look like an idiot if he somehow gets an arm trap and drags Krylov to the ground, submits him? Then he's earned it. But you got to imagine that like the submission prop on Paul Craig is probably around, I'd have to guess like plus 300-ish, maybe a little bit more if you get it there. But even being a plus 165 underdog, I'm sure the bookies know that that's his main path to victory. I wouldn't imagine that would be more than plus 300. I don't even think that's worth taking a stab on. I just don't see it being very, very likely at that number. I'm going to take Krylov to win this fight. I'm going to take Krylov to win this fight by TKO, probably in round 2, I would say, if not round 1. Give it time. I think Krylov will kind of feel out the situation. Paul Craig might try to get in close and attempt some takedowns. I think Krylov will be pretty defensively sound and outstrike his way to a TKO in round 2. Another fun fight up in the heavyweight division here is Sergey Pavlovich finally coming back against Shamil Abdurakhimov. Abdurakhimov, we just saw in October against Krystalkis get knocked out, not once, but twice, basically, in that fight. 40-year-old guy, 40-year-old Dagestani guy, moved into this gatekeeper role. He took 2 years off, and then we saw him in October come back after that hiatus. Came off of a loss to Curtis Blades, stoppage loss, and then comes back and looks pretty slow, pretty plodding. Looks like he's wearing his age. He had several health issues he was pulling out of fights for, which led to Krystalkis kind of being the favorite by a large margin and getting the job done. Brutal KO. Kind of looks like the end of the road for Shamil Abdurakhimov, who's had a pretty good run in the UFC, honestly, all things considered. The guy was able to have success over, Chase Sherman, Andrei Arlovsky, Tybura, by finish before, that was all in 2019 before his long hiatus after that Curtis Blades loss. Pretty good, I'd say. For the heavyweight division, not bad. I think a positive record for him. Looks like he was 4-4. No, 5-4 in the UFC as a heavyweight. Not a bad run, all things considered. Sergey Pavlovich, however, burst onto the scene as an undefeated heavyweight from that Fight Nights Global regional scene over there in Russia. Fought my guy Overeem. Overeem was pushing 40 at that time too, but that's when Overeem was over at Team Elevation. Turned in kind of more into a grapple heavy approach as a fighter, and managed to get Sergey to the ground and tee off on him for a first round stoppage. So He did introduce a way to beat Sergey Pavlovich if you can close the distance on him and be a good enough grappler against the cage. I think Overeem used like a Muay Thai plum lock to kind of bully him with some strikes to the cage, tripped him to the ground, and then finished him off with some heavy ground and pound strikes. Back in the day, I think Shamil Abdurakhimov could have maybe emulated that and used a strategy like that, but the Shamil that we saw against Chris Daukaus, definitely not. The guy was so slow. And I think Sergey Pavlovich, even though we haven't seen him in a few years now, 2.5 years, I think he's going to be probably licking his chops after seeing that Chris Daukaus fight on the tape. He's probably like, man, if Chris Daukaus can do this as slow as that guy is, I probably can too. With an 84-inch reach, young guy. I don't even think Sergey Pavlovich is 30 yet. Somehow, even with this giant layoff. How old is this guy? Yeah, he's only 29 years old. He'll be 30 in May. So pretty exciting to still have a 14-1 prospect in the heavyweight division being sidelined this long. I know he had some visa issues. I think he had an injury at one point a couple years ago. Yeah, he was supposed to face Cyril Gane back in 2020, pulled out for the injury. I remember that now. And then after that, it was visa issues. I like Sergey Pavlovich a lot in this bout. It is scary as heck to bet on a guy minus 300 favorite after such a long layoff. But with his age, I don't think we have to worry about that layoff. With his the athleticism that he's shown so far, I don't think we have to worry about it. The thing that I worry about, if anything, is him getting just the variance of the heavyweight division. I think Shamil, even at 40 years old, still has power left in his punches. He didn't look like he did against Chris Daukaus. But one thing that I don't like about Sergey Pavlovich is even though he has that long 84-inch reach, he's got amazing power in his hands. He does close the pocket kind of recklessly. Like he'll get a guy hurt or like maybe land, a 1-2 in a guy, and then he'll just try to tee off on him and get him out of there, but being completely square to his opponent, and instead of being, a good striker at an angle, he's totally, just squared up against his opponent. I think he's open for a counter shot at some point. I don't think Shamil is the one to do it. So if Sergey Pavlovich can tighten up his defense a little bit, maybe the 84-inch reach and his giant height and frame will help keep him out of harm's way. And I just think the speed advantage is something different here. So if Sergey comes in like he did in the past, I think he easily beats Abdurakhimov here. The KO prop is probably way too juiced to even play. You're not going to get plus money on that because that's probably the path to victory. I'm sure even combining around one. The issue is also the time props with this is, like, of course, we think this is going to end inside the distance. But a guy coming off, sometimes when people come off of layoffs, they're either very timid and they have to, kind of get their toes dipped back in the water and it takes a little bit of time to get their timing down in round one. Or they get like that nervous energy from being laid off. They want an easy, return to the cage and they go crazy against their opponent and kind of sprint in that first round. I think we're going to see the latter from Sergey Pavlovich. He gets it done in round one against Shamil Abdurakhimov. Abdurakhimov just too old, gets backed up, too many health issues. Give me Sergey Pavlovich round one KO. Up next, a featherweight bout and a close one at that between McCann Amirkhani and Mike Grundy. We haven't seen Mike Grundy in a bit. I think going on a year, I want to say. What was it? The last one was Lando Venata. He lost a split decision at UFC 262. So that was the Chandler Oliveira card. I believe that was last May. So been a bit for him. About time for him to get back in the cage. Somebody who didn't take a lot of time off was McCann Amirkhani after getting iced by that knee of Lerone Murphy. That was just at UFC 267 in October. This is kind of a loser leaves town match as far as I'm concerned because you've got a guy in Mike Grundy. He might get one more chance since he just lost a split decision and then a loss before that against Movsar Evloev. No shame there. But either way, you shake it, 2-loss streak. McCann Amirkhani, 3-fight losing streak. So both of these guys really need to get a bounce back here. Unfortunately, this is a close fight. Unfortunately, both guys are pretty questionable in their potential in the UFC. I think Mike Grundy has a little bit more potential in the UFC, but then he's the older man at 35 years old. Amirkhani, a couple years younger, 33. So both getting up there for featherweight, both not showing a lot of potential. Both are grapplers. There's a lot of similarities in this fight. McCann Amirkhani, when he's the most successful, he's closing the distance, getting the fight to the ground. Outside of that flying knee finish in his debut, he really is a grappler, a guy who's looking to get the submission win. When it doesn't happen, he usually loses the fight. Mike Grundy, in his background, is a champion freestyle wrestler in Europe, and I think he's the better wrestler. I think if he ends up, I think he will end up getting the takedowns in this fight and probably staying in those control time positions. The thing is, he has to be active in those control time positions. That's how he lost the Lando Venata fight. He got outstruck by the numbers, but then managed to get the control time. Same with Movsar Evloev. He was able to get a lot of the takedowns against Movsar Evloev, which is a pretty good look, pretty impressive against Evloev, but then he never was able to maintain those positions. Again, it's Movsar Evloev. No shame there. The guy's talented. But, I think Mike Grundy will put it all together here. I think his cardio is a bit better than McKenna Amirkhani. McCann is known for, that's no secret. It's obvious in his record and in his tape study. He starts off quickly, kind of like Lerone Murphy, very successful early, and then fades, falls apart, and ends up losing the fight later on, whether inside the distance or by decision. I see this being a decision fight. I think the overs are definitely live. I think the bookies are probably privy to the overs being the way to go in this fight, and I think Mike Grundy ends up taking this one and continuing a stint in the UFC. How much more potential, how much more ceiling he has, I'm not quite sure, but a minus 180 favorite here. I kind of agree with the price tag, but I think it's priced so fairly that I can't get any value out of it, if that makes sense. So again, when we're looking to bet a fight, just as a reminder for anybody who's new to sports gambling, if I think minus 180 is the price that I would assign for Mike Grundy, if I think those are good odds, and the bookies also have it at minus 180, I don't get any value by then putting my money on minus 180 when I think it's there. I would want this to be like minus 130, and then I think it should really be minus 180. I need to get an edge in the bookie. I think right now, based on their records, based on their potentials, their paths to victory, I think Mike Grundy is the rightful favorite. I think minus 180 is about the odds, but for that reason, I cannot bet this fight. If I do a parlay scheme, Mike Grundy is going to be towards the bottom of that parlay scheme. Just because I think it can be close. I think it can be close. McCann is able to pull some stuff out of his ass sometimes, but I don't think he does it here. Give me Mike Grundy to win a unanimous decision. Okay, up next is a guy who's jumping up a weight class here in Ilia Topuria. Very exciting prospect, taking on Jai Herbert, the Black Country Banger. Amazing nickname. Everybody's favorite nickname. Jai Herbert has that going for him. Coming off of a nice win over Kama Worthy. A fight that we knew wasn't going to last very long, no matter who got the victory there. He was on a 2-fight losing streak before that, losing by TKO to Francisco Trinaldo, and then to Renato Moicano, who easily took him down, choked him out. So he really needed to win that fight in the UFC. Got his first win. Coming out of the Cage Warriors regional scene over there in England. So this will be a hometown crowd for Jai Herbert. I'm sure they'll be excited to see their boy, but I'm sure Ilia Topuria is equally as big of a fan favorite, even in Jai Herbert's backyard, because Ilia Topuria is only 25 years old, but looks to have all the goods, man. He's very powerful, very, very clean grappling, 11-0 record, and he's a minus 450 favorite in this fight, plus 350 the return on Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert has the puncher's chance here, and a big puncher's chance. He's got an 8-inch reach advantage at 6'1", 77-inch reach at 155, which is very, very physically gifted. He's an athletic-looking guy. I mean, for having, going 1-2 in the UFC so far, kind of underperforming. I think he's more talented than that record suggests. Definitely, if you watch his Cage Warriors fights, where he was the champion there in the weight class, there's a lot to like with him. And I think he's a warranted plus 350 underdog. I think he's live, is what I'm trying to say. I think he's a live underdog against Ilia Topuria. I'm not confident in it, though, but it's live at plus 350. If this was like a plus 200 underdog, I wouldn't think so. But plus 350, I mean, you're giving so few odds to the fact that he's a much bigger guy. And if this could even stay for, a round at kickboxing range, I think Jai Herbert has a huge advantage over Ilia Topuria. But Ilia Topuria, I think, is going to be too fast. Jump in, close the distance, and take him down, where he wants to fight. And once he gets that takedown, I don't think it's leaving the ground. I think Ilia Topuria's crushing top pressure is too much. He's too talented at 25 years old. I mean, he's so good at, it seems like he's experienced beyond his years, honestly. And I think it'll be either a ground and pound or a submission. One of those top pressure moments where it's like either ground and pound finish in 10 seconds or turn over to avoid the strikes and give up your neck in 20 seconds. I think it'll be that type of performance from Ilia Topuria. Minus 450 is pretty scary, but I'm pretty confident in this guy to get it done, ground the fight. He shows pretty good fight IQ. You know, I would be surprised if he comes in here and tries to go toe-to-toe with Jai Herbert for more than a moment just to level change and get the takedown. I don't think he's going to ego challenge Jai Herbert here in a striking affair at this giant physical disadvantage that he has. He's going to close the distance, get in on those hips, and win this fight. I'm gonna say around 1 submission for Ilia Topuria. Okay, up next, the women's flyweight bout between Molly McCann, the hometown favorite, against Luana Carolina. The younger woman, Luana Carolina, 28 years old. Bigger woman, you know, 69-inch reach she's going to have in this. I think 5'7". Molly McCann, 5'4", 62-inch reach, 31 years old. You know, their experience is about the same, I would say. You got to give the volume advantage probably to Molly McCann. She's kind of known for that fan favorite style of crashing in to the pocket, taking a shot to land 2 or 3 in return. It's kind of her style, not very defensively sound, but puts enough output on the board to win fights that way. Luana Carolina, however, probably has a power advantage. I've seen her on the regional scene drop opponents. I'm sure, Molly McCann definitely at the lower level has some finishes as well. But Luana Carolina, I mean, her biggest moment in the UFC so far is probably against Priscilla Cachoeira, who is known for taking ridiculous amounts of punishment with no striking defense whatsoever for Cachoeira and still surviving to tell the tale. She did survive that fight, but she got dropped by a nasty left head kick of Luana Carolina. Luana Carolina also, I see she's got some powerful, like a powerful right hook she has in her arsenal too. She uses that repeatedly. You know, long limbs. She seems to be getting a little bit better with the way that she times her strikes. And I think she's going to have a lot of opportunity to do that against Molly McCann, who's going to come forward. And, you know, Luana Carolina is going to have the opportunity to counter Molly McCann. I think it'll come down to one of those fights where it's the volume of Molly McCann, total strikes probably for Molly McCann, versus the bigger moments potentially from Luana Carolina, who I see having a big power and size advantage in this fight. Molly McCann attempts a lot of takedowns in her fights, a lot if you look at her stats. Doesn't have much control time in those positions though, and I don't think that's going to change here against a bigger, probably physically stronger Luana Carolina. You know, if Molly McCann does attempt takedowns, maybe she gets in trouble, eats a big shot, closes distance, and, I don't know, tries to take down Luana Carolina against the cage or something. I could see Carolina, you know, digging some underhooks or something like that and switching positions. Maybe she lands on top. Maybe she gets the dominant position after a failed attempt from Molly McCann. I see a number of situations here where I think Carolina could win. It's a close fight, in my opinion. Like I said, I think it'll come down to, you know, what the judges favor, whether it's the relentless pace and pressure and significant strike attempts of Molly McCann, or it's the bigger moments, the stronger and cleaner strikes of Luana Carolina here. Maybe the grappling can make a difference. I think it's a close fight. I don't lean heavily towards either side here, which for that reason I will take the underdog in Luana Carolina. A close fight, I'll give the physical advantages to Carolina, and in a fight that I see pretty even here, regardless of Molly McCann being the hometown favorite here. I think since it's so close, I will take the plus money. I will take the underdog shot on Luana Carolina. Younger woman, I think she's bigger, more time to improve. And, you know, assuming she makes those improvements, I think she could actually find herself winning this fight. An 8-2 record Luana Carolina has, and she's only lost her very first fight professionally, and that quick submission loss to Ariane Lipski. Aside from that, done very, very well. 8-2 record. I like it. Give me Luana Carolina to win by decision. Up next, an interesting fight at 170. Takashi Sato taking on Gunnar Nelson. Two guys that haven't been in here in a while. The last time that we saw Takashi Sato, first off, was against Miguel Baeza, the guy who I'm really high on. Too bad that guy just lost against Chaos Williams. Miguel Baeza was able to kind of look like a submission specialist and get a nice arm triangle choke against Takashi Sato in round 2 of their fight. Kind of the partially why Takashi Sato is such a big underdog here is this is just a bad stylistic matchup for him. I mean, the way that this guy loses fights is getting choked out by, superior grapplers, guys that are just relentlessly hunting for that submission, and they usually get it against Takashi Sato. The size will not be that big of a difference here. 5'10" for Sato, 5'11" for Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson, a guy, though, that's been out for even longer. He's been out for 2.5 years. We haven't seen this guy in a while. I haven't heard his name in a while. I'm not sure what he's been up to. If he had some sort of injury or something like that, I actually don't even know. I should probably get that information. But this is a big step down in competition for him, at least. At least if you're going to take a 2.5-year hiatus, at least you are going to come back against somebody that, not many people do this. Not many people in this game, once they, for various reasons this happens, sure, but when they have a big layoff or they come back after a bad beat, they don't come down in competition hardly ever. But, I mean, for a guy who's faced Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards, Cowboy Oliveira, Ponzinibbio, Damian Maia, I mean, the Abdurakhimov, I mean, this guy is, not Abdurakhimov, Omari Akhmedov. I mean, this guy has had such a long career in the UFC as Gunnar Nelson, and then to come back against a guy with very little UFC experience and Takashi Sato, a guy who is not on the level at all of the opponents that I just named, that Gunnar Nelson has had mixed success with. Gunnar Nelson, he's going to get this fight to the ground. I think he's going to cut right through Takashi Sato's defenses like a hot knife to butter. Get the probably a round one submission, I would say. I favor Gunnar Nelson pretty much every avenue. For him to be a minus 450 favorite, though, after such a huge layoff, I mean, that number is really getting beefed up by this being a bad stylistic matchup, this being a short notice fight for Takashi Sato, and it just being like a step down in competition. For all those combined reasons, I guess minus 450 makes sense. But again, for somebody that we haven't seen, I barely even remember this guy being in the UFC actively still. Minus 450 off the gate. Oh, man, I don't know. Takashi Sato, a couple things that go in his favor. He's got a very, very powerful striker, very strong southpaw left straight that he throws. He's at a good camp at Sanford MMA if he still trains there. So not bad in that way, but I mean, short notice, horrible stylistic matchup, big step up in competition. I mean, you're talking about at least potent finishers here. So both guys are finished a lot. Both guys get finishes. You can look for the fight doesn't go. I have to take a look at that number. But 12 of 17 wins by submission for Gunnar Nelson here. I think he does it again in round 1 or 2 by submission. Give me Gunnar Nelson. I just don't like the price. Okay, let's continue this trend of super wide money lines here. Paddy Pimblett taking on Rodrigo Vargas. Paddy Pimblett is a minus 450. Even more in some places favorite over Rodrigo Vargas, the older man at 36 years old. He is a plus 350-ish underdog in this spot. Paddy Pimblett, all the hype in the world on this guy. He's got a fun, goofy look, a fun, goofy personality, and skills to back it up. He busts into the UFC against Luigi Vendramini and has, a highlight reel knockout in the first round after overcoming some adversity we can talk about here. His defense is not that great on the feet. I mean, he had his head up right on a platter for Luigi Vendramini to almost knock him out. And if you want to talk about past the victory for Rodrigo Vargas, I mean, he could do the same thing here. Coming off of the Combate regional scene, some other smaller promotions, Rodrigo Vargas, 5'8". I definitely think, I don't know if he's the more powerful striker. I don't know if he's the better striker, but he is definitely the more traditionally sound, better looking striker, in my opinion. If you watch any of his fights, he's got a very traditional, kind of like a Mexican boxing stance, good defense, high guard, keeps his chin tucked, things that you want to do. The opposite of how Paddy Pimblett fights. I mean, even though Paddy Pimblett can be unpredictable, a lot of his bread and butter comes from getting the fight to the ground, being just a scrappy, tough kid, and getting the submission wins, which is, I think, how he wins this fight. I don't see him taking out Vargas on the feet. I'd be surprised if he takes out Vargas on the feet. I think Rodrigo Vargas, even once again, kind of like Luigi Vendramini did, I think he exposes the poor defense of Paddy Pimblett. If Paddy doesn't tighten that up and be a little bit more defensively sound on the feet, I think he's going to be in trouble here against Vargas. But, I am a fan of Paddy Pimblett. I like the whole get-up. I like it. I know a lot of people aren't as high on that as I am. A lot of people, including myself, I can put my fandom aside here, and I definitely am looking for the spot to I mean, 155 is a tough division, and I think that Paddy Pimblett will get exposed at some point by somebody. Vargas might be the guy to do it, and plus 350, if you want to take like a knockout prop or something like that, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a juicy number, and I wouldn't even hate anybody taking the underdog shot, but I just don't think this is the spot to fade Paddy Pimblett. I can see Rodrigo Vargas doing something boneheaded, like where he gets Paddy Pimblett, maybe he rocks him, gets him to back up a little bit, and then Rodrigo Vargas jumps all over him. Maybe gets him against the cage, they clinch up, Rodrigo Vargas jumps guillotine, and then Paddy Pimblett's able to scramble his way out and get a submission of his own, So I can see, that's kind of what's flashing through my mind, is Paddy Pimblett in trouble, the crowd on the edge of their seat, seeing their boy about to get knocked out, and then Paddy Pimblett manages to get this fight up close against the cage, gets the takedown, reverses something, and gets a submission win. I could see him getting like a triangle choke finish. I could see him climbing all over the back of Rodrigo Vargas, jumping on his back from a standing position, getting a rear naked choke that way. I see this fight ending in submission for Paddy Pimblett in rounds 1 or 2. That's going to be my take on this fight. Like I said, I think Paddy Pimblett's upside is going to be the grappling here, of course. I think on the feet, Rodrigo Vargas definitely has a chance to win this fight based on what we've seen from Paddy Pimblett's style of striking. But I don't think this is the spot for Vargas. I'm going to take Paddy Pimblett to win by submission. Yet another interesting fight. At 145 this time, Dan Hooker returns to featherweight to take on Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen pretty high up in the rankings at this point, 17-1. He's the slight favorite, minus 115 favorite. Dan Hooker, minus 105. It looks like the way this line goes, it's kind of bouncing back and forth. Dan Hooker might be an underdog by the time fight night hits. It's kind of a buy low spot on Dan Hooker, in my opinion, after getting dominated by Islam Mokaev. Before that, he was able to look very, very good against Nasrat Haqparast. Then before that, he lost to Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier. They had that war there. The guys fought nothing but the best in the division, which it shocks me that this line is where it is. I feel like Dan Hooker should be the favorite here. I know Arnold Allen looks like he's got a clear path to victory, since, it looks like Dan Hooker does not know how to grapple after facing Mokaev. Who would look like they know how to grapple after facing Islam Mokaev? I don't know. Arnold Allen does have the skills to definitely employ a good game plan to win this fight if everything goes his way. 28 years old, like I said, 5'8", 70-inch reach versus the large 6-foot frame, 75-inch reach of Dan Hooker, 32 years old. Arnold Allen, because of all the ground control time, his stats are pretty good as far as significant strikes landed per minute, 7.2 significant strikes landed a minute. Dan Hooker, a guy who primarily is taking place on the feet, very, very active, 4.9 significant strikes landed a minute. Both guys have 11 takedowns in their career so far, the percentage being much better, like 50% for Arnold Allen, but Dan Hooker looks pretty good. He looked good against Nasrat Haqparast as far as the wrestling went. Islam Mokaev, you're going to just have to give him a pass on that one. Short notice, against the guy who's like the uncrowned king right now. Michael Chandler never really had a chance to get going in that fight, got knocked out early. Dustin Poirier, man, what a war that was. That's kind of the difference of what I see in this fight, is I think Arnold Allen has never had to, first off, this is the biggest, highest talented fighter he's had to fight, Arnold Allen, so far. Before that, Arnold Allen's probably best victories like Gilbert Melendez, Sadiq Youssef maybe, I guess in hindsight, since Gilbert Melendez was getting older at that point. But this is a spot where the line has confused me and made me think I'm missing something. But I think Dan Hooker is the guy I've been taking this spot. If I could get him at an underdog price or even money, perfect, all the better. I'm pretty confident in Dan Hooker to win this fight. I just think with his giant frame, he's big for a lightweight, but for featherweight, he's going to be massive. Looks great. All the images of him out of training, he looks like he's in good shape. If he can make this weight, it would be awesome. And I just think it's just the pressure that, what I was saying before, is nobody that has fought Arnold Allen has ever had the chance to land as many strikes as Dan Hooker usually lands in his fights. Dan Hooker, we're looking at... against Dustin Poirier, this is a 5-round fight, but Dan Hooker is putting out 155 strikes in that fight. Against Ally Quinta, 98. He was able to take out James Vick, Gilbert Burns. It's just such a high level. I mean, even Edson Barbosa, he was throwing back 81 significant strikes, and he got destroyed in that fight. So Arnold Allen, I don't think has ever had to absorb more than 50 strikes in a fight even. Gilbert Melendez only was able to throw 23 on him. Nick Lentz, 49. Sadiq Youssef, 47. He's usually able to get the fight in the realm that he wants it before they can even throw strikes back at him. So in my opinion, if Dan Hooker can, use his defensive wrestling, keep this in a kickboxing match, those big knees up the middle, nice long rangy strikes that he throws, and he throws them at a pretty high clip. I think that pressure will eventually break Arnold Allen. And if he doesn't, if Dan Hooker doesn't get him out of there, I think he wins a clear-cut 3-round decision. I'm not too worried about the gas tank of Hooker. He's able to throw these shots, and he's able to go 5 rounds against guys. I'm taking Dan Hooker. I think Dan Hooker could even get this done inside the distance, I want to say, by strikes. Again, I just the unknowns of Arnold Allen absorbing that many strikes that Dan Hooker is prepared to throw. Give me Dan Hooker to win in this fight at a good price tag, too. Definitely a buy low spot on Dan Hooker. Okay, we've made it to the main event of the evening, which is Tom Aspinall stepping up to the plate to take on Alexander Volkov at this main event in UFC Fight Night London. Tom Aspinall, the hometown advantage here. Let me check the updated odds because I know this line was about to flip. It's been a pick'em for a while now. Yep, it's official. Alexander Volkov is now the underdog. Plus money, plus 105 for Alexander Volkov and minus 125 the favorite, Tom Aspinall, which is absolutely insane. Tom Aspinall, it's always one of these phenomenons, and especially heavyweight mixed martial arts, when you see a guy with violent finishes, a guy that's looked really good, streaking prospect. Tom Aspinall looks physically strong, 6'5". I think he's right around like the 250-pound mark as far as what he weighs in at the heavyweight division. So, that's a pretty good frame. Usually it's these guys that are having success now, right? They're like these mid-range heavyweights that aren't quite coming in at the limit. Yeah, 247 last weigh-in. Tom Aspinall, a lot to like about him, but he hasn't been tested very much at all. Always winning in the first round or under 1.5 usually. The Arlovsky fight was very impressive because he was able to touch him up on the feet and then switch to a rear naked choke victory against the cage. And he did it with the quickness. This guy is so fast. Same with the Sergey Spivak fight. I mean, just explosive speed for being a big guy at 6'5". Volkov is the longer fighter at 80-inch reach, 6'7", very tall, rangy kickboxer. And this guy, Alexander Volkov, has had a hell of a career so far, starting his pro career in 2009 and racking up a huge record in that time, honestly, for being 33 years old only, which is still pretty young for a heavyweight, honestly. What is his record here? It's 34-9, which is just pretty crazy with 22 knockouts over his career. I mean, this is a pretty advanced record for somebody who's only 33 as a heavyweight. And the only times he's been finished by strikes are against Vitaly Minikov, who's an absolute monster, and Derek Lewis, who's one of the biggest power punchers. That was more of a Hail Mary knockout at the very last 11 seconds. But nonetheless, that's the only time he's been finished. Yet Tom Aspinall is the favorite. And his best path to victory here is probably to knock him out early, right? Or maybe get a submission early, and that submission would probably, you'd assume that submission would be set up by the strikes, kind of like the Andrei Arlovsky fight. Not just like, he grounds Volkov and, without striking him up, he just gets his neck or something. That's probably not going to happen. Volkov, a pretty good jiu-jitsu player in his own right. Maybe not on the level of Tom Aspinall, but pretty close. I mean, as far as MMA experience goes in the BJJ realm, Volkov is right up there in my opinion. So this will play out on the feet, I would imagine. Volkov's going to have to use that height and reach and keep Tom Aspinall at bay. Hard to do when Tom Aspinall is going to pressure forward. Where I'm having an issue with this fight is that my gut is telling me that Tom Aspinall is going to make all of the numbers and all of the metrics meaningless and crash in the pocket, come in here and knock out Volkov early. For some reason, my gut is telling me that. It just seems like a perfect spot to step up to the plate, in your home country, make it exciting and just have that fairy tale, coming out party. But Volkov, by the numbers, I have to pick him to win this fight, and especially at an underdog price. But since my gut and my brain are telling me two different things, I'm just not going to bet the fight. I mean, that's the love of MMA gambling. We don't have to bet every fight. We've got a lot of opportunities on this card to make money. Since I personally see way more paths to victory for Volkov, I see him as the more proven fighter, more durable fighter so far, 5-round experience. You know, we haven't even seen Tom Aspinall outside of like round 2. And when it does go there, he loses the fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's athletic enough, young enough to do that and to win, you know, an extended fight here. But I haven't seen it, so I can't bet on it. And since my gut is telling me Tom Aspinall, kind of as a fan, I want Tom Aspinall to win and continue this surging prospect streak he's on. But all of the numbers and the paths to victory and things on the number side, even the tape study side, show me that Volkov should win this fight. I'm going to pick Volkov as a prediction to win this fight. I could see him stretching this out long. Tom Aspinall being just athletic enough to hang in there and keep his hands up for 5 rounds, but not really be that active, just get outstruck. I could see Volkov winning a decision. I could see Volkov winning into the distance if Tom Aspinall gasses out. But since there's something that's just telling me that Aspinall comes in here and wins. So since my head and my gut are telling me two different things, it's a pass betting-wise. If I throw together a bunch of progressive parlay picks on this, Volkov will definitely be on the lower end of those tickets. Not a whole lot of confidence in this pick. But at plus money, I don't hate this. I don't hate either side. I could argue both sides all day. I'm very conflicted, as you can tell. But official pick, I'm going to say Volkov wins this fight. Yeah, that's all for UFC London. This is a fun card. I think like 13 fights total we got through. So when I'm looking at my most confident fighters here, I really have to take a look and start ranking these fighters as most confident. I mean, like Ilia Topuria, pretty confident in. Sergey Pavlovich, very, very confident in. Nathaniel Wood, pretty confident in. Other than that, there's like mediocre confidence in like Corey McKenna, Mokaev. Oh, Gunnar Nelson, I'm pretty confident in. So in my best bets video I released in a few days, I will put out some of the best props. I'm going to attack a lot of props in this card, and we'll look at who the safe parlay picks are as well on that video. So look out for that. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like, and let's keep making money. Last week was a great comeback spot for us. A lot of profit last week. Let's keep it going here. This is a sketchy card, but it's a fun one entertainment-wise. So good luck on all your betting, and yeah, have a good day.